Okay. Share screen. Cool. So now we have a recording going on. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the August, what is it, 6th? Wow. Tinderbox Meetup. Excited to see everybody. Got a ton of faces today, which is awesome. And we've got some new ones as well, which is also equally awesome. So let's start with the introducing the typical format. When we do a Tinderbox meetup, we meet every other Saturday and every other Sunday, except when we don't. As we were joking earlier, you will find the meetup schedules posted online. Our goal for the Tinderbox meetings.
Michael, just a comment.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but you're on sharing screen.
Yeah, I know, because I'm recording.
Okay.
Yeah. Because this is the only way we can get everyone to see and to be able to record the session when Mark doesn't record. So the goal here today is to talk about and review all things Tinderbox, ask people, answer and ask people's questions, and then we'll go into the topic of today, which is a new way that been thinking about how to present Tinderbox and help people understand it and use it. So we definitely want to go through that. But we see some new faces. So for those that are new, if you want to give a brief introduction of yourselves, that would be fantastic. And then if for those that have any burning questions or topics, like we already have one right now on how to deal with bullets. Let's talk about that before we jump into the planned session. So for those that are new, they want to give a brief introduction, and if any of you have any burning topics that you're working on, why don't you raise those questions and we'll then work on those. So who wants to go first?
I can go first. Actually, Kim Peterson. I worked with you, Mike, a little bit on a 101. I finished a PhD back in 2020, and I wish I would have used Tinderbox versus mind mapping solutions. Tinderbox does mind mapping, but I'm into knowledge management. Definitely looked at your 4Cs concepts and looking at other ways to learn. I'm addicted to learning, and Tinderbox is the way to learn how to learn. And it's amazing application. I'm still learning on it. Very humbled by this application, and that's me. Thank you.
Awesome. And Justin, you're new.
I am new. Hi, everybody. I'm Justin. I'm working with Michael on a couple projects right now, and so I'm learning the ins and outs of Tinderbox, and so far I have found that it is extremely helpful in terms of knowledge management. So just here to get a few tips and increase my dexterity with the tool.
Yeah, so we used my new process that we'll be reviewing today. We introduced Justin to Tinderbox on Tuesday, and he's already completely reliant and working with clients through the use of the tool and the knowledge management. So we had him up and running in about a day and a half, which is pretty exciting. So we'll kind of review that today. Anybody else? Azaphone,
Yes.
DP, Frederick?
Yeah, it's Frederick. Thank you. I've been trying to take notes for years, either using flat text files or Word or mind maps, and nothing seems to work. It all turns into a huge mess. And so I'm trying this, and it seems to be working a bit better already. I've been using it both for research and security, and also for like reading books like Dante or something and trying to make notes and figure out what's what. And I'm just starting, so I really could use help getting better at it. Thank you.
Okay. Fantastic. Welcome. Who else? JC or CJC.
It's Carolyn. Sorry, just put my initials there. I started playing around with it about 3 or 4 years ago, and then I've been doing a job that didn't need it at all. I was really playing around with it for my own use anyway beforehand, but I've just decided to go back to it and just use it for knowledge management and things like that. Really, just note taking and linking ideas, so on.
Perfect.
So I just getting back into it really.
Perfect.
Cheers.
All right. And who else? All right.
Hello, Mr. Michael.
Okay, go ahead.
Hey, Mr. Michael.
Hey.
Dan Burke. I'm software engineer, DevOps engineer with Optum, part of the United Health Group, living in beautiful, sunny Rochester, Minnesota, where we only get snow 11 out of 12 months a year. So
Nice.
Long time lurker with Tinderbox over the years, and finally with the summer sale that Mark advocated, I jumped on and then completely got lost, and thankfully found your tutorials, and away we go.
All right. Well, welcome to the family. Great.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else?
Yeah, I can. My name is Toss Lipper. I was using the brain for quite a long time, because what I'm basically doing is quite complex domain modeling, and but since hypercards, nothing really made me happy. So hopefully, that Tinderbox helped me a lot, because modeling quite complex domains is normally not an easy thing, because most of the tools are not able to handle really complex domains. So
Right.
yeah, really happy to get into that.
Perfect. All right. Anyone else? Okay, so if not, let's jump into a question. So who has any specific questions? We heard one at the startup, and I'm interested to see what other specific questions people might have.
I just raised my hand. It's not so much a question, but I just put in the chat a link to a video. It's about 4 years old, from the maker of Panorama 10, which is a relational database software. And he introduces regular expressions. And coming from a total non-coding background and really only trusting myself to contribute to these meetups in the last month or two, what I've decided to do, if I find anything, because I know there's quite a few of us here quite confronted by the whole coding environment. There are so many aspects to this. I think what I'll start doing at these meetups, if I find any resources that help me on my journey to understand this process, I'll just drop them into the chat or put it up on the forum. But this video link to the maker from Panorama 10, for those of you that are struggling with regular expressions, and I do have applications in Tinderbox, have a look, it's very helpful. I keep on putting off going back to them because it seems to be impenetrable, but that video has been quite helpful for me. So yeah, that's just one thing I just wanted to add.
So do us all a favor, if you don't mind. And in your language, in terms, what is a regular expression? Why do they matter? Can you briefly explain them? Because they are a very important concept.
They are, aren't they? Yeah. So I came across them when I had scanned in a huge word list in German and English of a lot of simple vocabulary items that had, as part of this PDF, they had the phonetic alphabet that I wanted to get rid of because my OCR could not recognize it. And there was thousands of words there, and I went looking on the internet. This before I started using Tinderbox, and I came across the regular expressions. And they identify patterns in strings. And it took me a few days to work it out, but basically I could put together a regular expression that was actually just a mishmash of symbols. And that could then recognize, select, and then I could delete all the phonetic alphabet that my OCR scan had read it wrongly.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, I wanted to get rid of anything that was basically junk. And by developing and going through and playing around with the regular expressions, I could identify these junk strings and get rid of them. That's how I first became involved with them. You'll often see, if you look at Michael's videos and his Tinderbox files as part of those videos, there'll often be regular expressions there, especially if I think exploding notes is one part where they are used a bit, and in other areas. And I found that this video is actually the most helpful resource because he's taken it in a step-by-step process, which is really helpful. Presenting it to some kind of software conference, and my old computer scientist friends sort of say, yes, regular expressions have been around since donkey's years, the 50s, I think, but it's still very effective.
Yeah, and so I was actually going to raise that point. So, just to help people understand that, maybe I'm not the best at these myself, so maybe Mr. Anderson can help us. But let me copy over some text. See if we can make it easier here. So let's copy over some text. So there's some text that we have in BB Edit. And what regular expressions will allow you to do is come in and parse in and find elements of data. So, and if you use the application BB Edit, you can launch a what's called the playground. And the playground will open up a regular expression pattern. And to your point, regular expressions is all about pattern matching. And here are all of the different ways and flags that you can use when writing a regular expression to match patterns within text. So you can look for, find any character that meets a certain type, or find numbers, or find whole words or non-words, etc. So for example, if we wanted to go in here and find the word ipsum, we can just put that into the regular expression. You'll see immediately it finds that. Then you can start doing things in regular expression. For example, if I put parentheses around it, that will create a class. What do you call it? That it's not a class, Mark. It's
a back reference.
A back reference. It will create what's called a back reference. And if you notice, the regular expression pattern matching changed, where I went from 0 to, so I now have a 0 and a 1. And we can demonstrate this later in another session, because this is going to get too deep into the tech cut dialogue. But what we can do now with this back reference is, particularly in examples like Tinderbox, we can say when we've searched for text and we found what we want, if you put that search criteria between the parentheses, it will generate a back reference, and then you can feed to Tinderbox that back reference number singled by like what's called a $sign, like $1. And then Tinderbox will then use that value that you can then later use in action code and other expressions throughout the process. So the back reference essentially lets you capture a value that you then can store and then reuse later within the sequence of the coding that you're doing. So it's really, really powerful. And as noted, you can find just a tremendous number of different examples. And like you, I'm often looking at references on where to get regular expression activities and such like that. But what I'll often do, and I forget it all the time, I'll regex for parsing email, right? So let's say I need to parse an email in Tinderbox and I need a regex in that. You'll find that when you go here, and there's tons of examples on Stack Overflow where people are saying, I've got my email addresses like this and I need to do a regex, and then people give you the answer. And so this is an example of a regex, and we won't necessarily read every line by line, but this is essentially saying, and if you don't remember what the tags are, like what's a \b mean? I can't remember. Where does the what's a \?
That's the word border.
Yeah.
I think.
Okay.
Yep.
So basically, it's saying go find. This is saying go find all of the texts that are both letters and numbers, and that precede an @sign, and then after the @sign, and then find the dots, and then what that will do is let you parse out and break apart an email address. And if we have time today, we can go through that, or maybe we have in a future session, we can actually do a deep dive in regular expression. But what's really important about this concept is regex, as you noted, was really a fundamental pattern matching capability built in the 50s, and is underlying much of the command line of most Windows, and if not all Windows and Mac OS operating systems. And then for example, you can use it in your action code, you can use it in your searches through Tinderbox, and you can use it in different ways to really facilitate digging into your content. It's incredibly powerful. Mark Anderson, would you refine that in any way?
No, I just say what I'll say. I was going to post something. I definitely a +1 if you have or use BB Edit. It's a really nice, safe way to play around and learn. I think the thing for those who are new to regular expressions, or regex as they're often called, is it's a bit like that really pedantic uncle or aunt you meet at family gatherings. They're always right, but in a way that leaves you feeling slightly burned. So it's very much garbage in, garbage out. They do exactly what you tell them to do, which isn't perhaps what you actually intended to do. So, which is where it's really hard at start, because you say, well, this is what I wanted, and I got back the wrong thing. and then the learning process is, right, I wasn't specific enough about what I wanted. But it's really super. I wouldn't worry about them if you don't feel the need to find stuff that you can't find by just sort of effectively typing in the word you want. Don't worry. So you're not missing out if you don't use them. But when you get to the point you're thinking, gosh, I need, or I need every third occurrence of this word or something, regular expressions are your friend. Don't worry if they don't work first time. Enlightenment will come. And the other thing is, do hit up the forum. So if you've got a particular thing and there's something, you've got an example of the thing you want to do, absolutely swing by the forum, and someone probably here present or others who aren't will like us not be able to sort you out in pretty short order.
Well,
and again,
and I
regularly to learn is from examples.
Yeah, and excuse the pun, but I will regularly call up Mark Anderson. I'm like, dude, help me. I can't figure this out, and we'll work through it and get the regular expression right. Because like in computing language, the computer doesn't know what you intend or want to do. It will only do specifically what you tell it to do. And each of those little slashes and carets and parentheses are specific instructions that are telling it, do this. And so if you get the instructions wrong, your souffle will fall flat and it won't work, right? You just got to kind of go through the process until you get the right recipe.
I think it's probably also worth mentioning that it comes, the regular expressions date from a time when people were typing things on black and green or black and white screens, and you literally were just typing in a few characters. So the fact that they're rather, that you just see this with sort of these weird codes, it is partly a reflection that everything was really hard at the time, but it does what it does. And the temptation is to say, well, can't I have a nice sort of point and click interface? But what you learn is that humans, we play fast and loose. We cope really well with, especially with spoken language, which actually breaks all our written grammatical rules. And we do that fine. Computers find that far harder because they've only got to work with what we give them. So they are very precise, but don't worry about the fact they just look impenetrable. You'll find it's actually very easy once you get going and just nibble your way into it.
I mean, very easy is subjective. I find them still a really frustrating pain in the butt sometimes.
I find them hard. I find them hard. The harder a question I ask, the harder they are to do. But they're not. I would say, compared to when I first started, I don't find them frightening now. I find them difficult to sometimes get what I want.
Correct.
And all I'm saying is don't worry. They will seem really hard to start with, and I don't think you'll be incredibly lucky if you just get it on day one. But the thing is not to worry. Just crack on and ask for help, and you'll find that a sense of enlightenment will come.
Well, and again too, if you're asking the question, no offense, probably somebody already has. And probably many thousands of people already have, and you go to Stack Overflow, and often what I'll find is the exact string of the regular expression that I need, even if I have absolutely have no idea what it says or how it works. I can copy it and it will work, and then later I'll figure out how to make it work if I have time. So we can come back to that later, but that's a really great idea, and maybe let's park that for a future discussion. Frederick, you had a question?
Yes, so I have a use case where I make a bunch of notes. I'm in the map and I'm making many notes, and in each one I type text and I might copy and paste from elsewhere into those notes. And so the fonts will all be different. I'm back to my old problem again. And then at the end of the day, I'd like to make it all uniform. And I looked in the forum and I think you said you can't do that.
Well,
but I'd like to do that. I'd like to not waste my time as I make notes.
Yeah, and actually that's a really good issue that we're going to be talking about today, which is this whole idea of the intermixing of your content with the presentation layer and design. So let me go ahead and show you this. Let me see. It'd probably work if I just copy this. I need to find a web. When you're doing a demo, you want to find a web page that has a bunch of rich media on it. Copy text. Actually, let me find an article. So often often when we're doing fast and loose research, which is very, very common. Let's go ahead here. Yeah. So let's go ahead and like this. So let's say we see this website here, and I'm going to copy all of this text right here because I really love it for whatever reason. And I'm going to go like, whoops. I'm going to go like this. I'm going to copy the text. and I'm going to create a note, and I paste it right in there. And so in the process of doing that, I pick up all of the rich text RTF formatting that has been embedded into this text. And this is something really common to do. But the challenge with that is you're essentially, what you've done is you've mixed structure with design with content. And again, we're going to reiterate that many times before we finish today's discussion. The way to fix that is you highlight all the text, and you can do that with Command A. And if you go up to the, I just want to make sure, the format bar, and you'll see under style, you'll see two tags, standard size and standard font. And if you then go back to the text, if you've highlighted your text and then apply those, what you can do is remove all the formatting. So what that does is that strips out all of that RTF layer content that you've embedded into the back of your text, and is now giving you more pure text. And then you might have to delete some. That was an embedded image that I no longer have. And these other items are your links and such like that. And those are embedded within the text. So that's a really nice and quick and dirty way to go about doing that. While we're at this, one other thing I've done to even make it even further is there's another language very similar to this idea of regular expression. There's the idea of Markdown, and the using a more it's a different notation methodology for writing HTML structure, which I'll be showing you in just a second. So if you see right here, we've got Nickelodeon and Disney, and embedded within these are the links. So if I go here in the text and I click on, how do I get my browse links window open, Mark?
Michael?
Yeah?
You said that you removed the formatting, but clearly there's still formatting involved because text is blue and
Well, no, because all of these are links. That's what I was just about to show you.
Yeah, but number 1 isn't a link, is it? Down below at the bottom? That's just blue text.
No, it's a link.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Right. So everything highlighted in blue is a link, which is a standard way of doing that. And where do I go to view browse links?
By the way, your menu bar isn't showing on the share. I don't know if that's intentional.
No, it won't, because I've got a 49-inch monitor and I'm just showing a small part of the screen.
I put a link in the sidebar for those who want to. So
Hey,
that
Mark,
the
I keep asking-
menu options that.
Mark, how do we
Mike
go
wants to
find the
mention,
browse?
There's a bit of write-up.
Mark, how do we find the browse links? It's not coming up for me for some reason.
You want
It's not highlighted.
it's on note, either note or view menu browse links, or Command Option L. But if you have one password installed, it won't work because it's already been nabbed by another. The shortcut's been nabbed by another tool.
Okay, that's not working for me though. If you can see when I go to browse links,
View browse links. Right. Okay. Right. That implies that something odd is happening here because it's saying there are no links.
But there are.
Right. No. There are there are web links, but they're not. So you should. If you right click, you should see a browse links.
Right.
Okay. I don't know what's happening there actually, because that's really weird.
All right, so we'll come back to that later. But you'll see here I clicked edit link. So I personally find when writing content, I want to get as pure content as I can, and I want to make sure that I can strip things out and be in control of my content. So what I will do if I were to write that link Nickelodeon, I would use Markdown, and I would do it this way. I would type the word Nickelodeon like this, like that, and like that. And that is the way of writing a Markdown link. And then we'll show you later on how to tell Tinderbox that you have markdown in your file versus markup in your file. And then that way you get kind of the best of both worlds. You can be generating a link, but also see what the link is. And that's incredibly powerful when you start writing more and more content. So that's one example. The other question we had. Any questions on that? I don't want to. I want to be careful from overloading this too much because I want to get back to simplicity today.
This Frederick, I had one question, which is if I had 3 notes and I hadn't done anything special can I do the first thing you did, which was remove the formatting of all the text and all those notes in one go, or do I have to go and edit each one?
I think you have to go and edit each one. Mark?
Okay, that's what I thought.
I believe so. It's something that I think is somewhere on the requested thing sort of feature stack. Generally, yes. So one thing you may find you quickly becomes your norm is that there is a shortcut which you just have to look at the keyboard now. It's Command Option Shift V is paste and match style. So if you, for instance, select something from a web page and do that instead of Command V, you will just get the text and none of the other styling. And in fact, I know it sounds a rather obscure shortcut, but you'll find it's the same in quite a lot of Mac apps. So it's a fairly standard thing. To the extent my muscle memory, I mean, I very rarely paste anything into a Tinderbox document without using paste and match style, unless I really, really want the style, because normally it just causes me grief at a later point.
Right.
Because you tend to end up with, especially if you're, for instance, clipping information from other sources, what you end up is a complete kitty litter of mismatch of styles, which you may have thought the original document was well styled, but when you've mixed clips from 5 different documents, it's just an offense to the eye. So it's easier often dump that as you bring it in, and then style it as you wish in a manner that makes sense to you as you go along.
So let's do that again. Let's say I'm copying this text here and I hit paste. So you're seeing I'm getting all of the formatting. If I were to do that again, and this time I'm going to do Command Option Shift V. So you hold the Shift key down, the Option key, and the Command key down at the same time, hit V. You'll see it all paste in like that. And to Mark's point, if you get to muscle memory, I like Mark, never paste anything, just hit paste. I always use Command Option Shift V now because I've gotten to the point of where I want pure content and I'm separating content from structure from design, which is what we're going to talk about in just a minute. So hopefully that's another helpful tip. Before we go on, we had one other question from one of our people today. Who asked the question about the bullets?
That was me again, Frederick.
Frederick. Okay, so let's say you are here and we say note with bullets. Okay, so we've got a note with bullets and you want to write some bullets. So you could say bullet hello world, bullet 1, bullet 2, bullet 3. Now there's a variety of ways you can do this. If you go up to and Mark, maybe you can pop this in the window. If you go up to the window pane and you hit Smart Pane Selector, you select, and I'll just show you here. You go up to the window pane and you select the window hide show text pane selector. That's really helpful. The other thing is to go to font and you turn on the ruler. Where's the ruler? I never can remember.
Menu, sorry.
So I've stopped using it, so I don't use it anymore. Show toolbars.
It's under text. I'll put a link in.
Where's text though? Show me.
Format text.
Format. Oh yeah, format text. Show ruler. Okay. So I've stopped using it because I don't want to pollute my content. So you see, by me turning on some of those menus, I've turned on the menu bar, which which Mark keeps off because some people don't like it. So I can turn that off, and that's the difference between toggling the menu bar and not. So that's hiding the toolbar, and this is showing the toolbar. I turn it off because I don't like the real estate. And really, all this is for is to help you quickly get to different views, and you can get those views by tabbing on the tab key. So that's another trick while we're at it. I'm going to hide that. Now, we've turned on this ruler toolbar. So what you could do is just go like this and look at your styles, and then you could also create a bulleted list. Now, this looks pretty, and sometimes it will export for you, and sometimes it won't. Most of the time it will, but sometimes it won't. And the problem too is, what if later, if you want to change the colors of these bullets, or if you want to manipulate them in any other way, again, separating structure from design from content is really an important concept that we're trying to get across today. And here, what you're essentially doing is playing the game of Microsoft Word, because that's what we've all gotten comfortable with, and we're embedding design within our content. which is, I don't want to say it's a bad thing. Anybody can do what they want. But if you think down the road of what I'm really trying to do is create atomic levels of asset of insights that I can repurpose and reuse down the road with as little, content, design manipulation as possible, then I highly recommend not using the toolbar. It just creates a whole helly mess and a level of inconsistency down the road that is you'll find not helpful. So let me pause there. Any questions there, and then I'll show you the alternatives. Yeah.
Michael, a quick observation, and I just sort of think, I think it was Erwin asked, can I sort of hold on to these settings? If you, excuse me, if you turn on the ruler, as you're seeing there, so that's the style bar and the ruler with the tabs in a document, that will apply to all notes in that document, and that will persist as long as you use that document until you turn the setting off again. I don't believe you can turn it on by default for all documents.
Well, you can if you've developed you can if you've developed a starter file for yourself. But that's a different
topic. That's it. But yes, but that's sort of without going down that rabbit hole. But essentially, there isn't a setting, for instance, in preferences that allows you to do it. But once you've turned it on, if that's your preferred style and you like to have that ruler and the tabs and things there, that's fine. It's on. There is a shortcut for it. So again, if you find you like it, but you don't want it there all the time, you'll probably find you'll learn the shortcut quickly, and then you can just toggle it on and off as you need.
Yep. Okay. Bill, and then Bruce.
I do not want to steal thunder or anything, Michael, but I thought I'd share what I would do in this situation.
Yeah, please.
Because it's pretty close to about as simple as you get, but it's the next level up in complexity. And I use a program called Text Expander, and Text Expander has a built-in shortcut for setting up an unordered list, which is bullets. So the particular command which I've memorized is ;ul. And then Text Expander puts in the HTML code for a unordered or bulleted list, and then it shows up very nicely in preview. So it's very simple, but it's the next level up in complexity.
That's fine, and essentially what he's suggesting is this: there is an HTML process, because remember, Tinderbox is letting you, bullet one. This is the HTML for writing a bulleted list. And
right, and so Text Expander will put those in automatically, except for the word.
Correct, correct. But let me. I'm going to keep reiterating a concept that I really want to nail down in today's conversation. Doing this is perfectly fine, and the other example of doing that is this, and I'll show you the implications of what we're doing right now. There's unordered list, and there's what's called an ordered list in HTML. And, we need to know. Okay, so these are two different styles of lists in HTML. And again, the concept I want to be getting across right now is when you do it this way, you're polluting your content with structure, right? Because this is basically HTML structure, and that's fine to do. But what you're going to find down the road, and I'm just giving you from my own personal experience, is I had to unwind this when I really actually learned about what Tinderbox could truly do.
This is great to hear.
Right, and because this is ugly, it's hard to read, it's not easy to use.
Until you go to the preview pane.
Right, and when you look at this, so here's the output of those different styles of HTML. The first bullet list, the second bullet list, the next bullet list. Likewise, if you're using Markdown, you can bullet a list like this. We'll go like that, and I'm using Markdown. Now, you'll see when I do that, the Tinderbox automatically recognizes, oh, you've been using Markdown. Asterisks are recognized as bullets. Let's turn them into bullets. So Tinderbox can be smarter for you. So for me, the cleanest, clearest way to write bullets when you're writing your content in Tinderbox is to do that. That's the fastest way. in the cleanest way and the purest way, because it will be, you can use regex to swap them out later. There's a whole bunch of other things you can do down the road that will automate your capabilities for publishing content. Let me give you one other strategy, and I don't want to blow your, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself when it comes to showing bullets, but I do want to show one other way to go about doing bullets. So here's another file, and I do this strategy all the time. So remember when you're creating your Tinderbox file, the idea is you want to be starting to create some atomic insights, right? Where let's say these bullets are actually in and of themselves really unique ideas. And let's say I'm using text expander as well, just like Bill, which is just one of the best tools out there. I freaking love it. Where you can use it to easily populate and populate content. So when I do \lorem, it gives me lorem ipsum text. So the challenge with doing bullets like this, let's say I do bullet 1, and we'll do our example here again. All right, sorry, the screen's let's just do three bullets for right now. So there's 3 bullets. The text is clean. Now, the challenge when I do this is, and I'm going to change my template because I'm going to get ahead of myself in structure and things, but let's go like that. And when I do that and I hit preview, let me do this real quick for you. For my okay, I'll show you what's going on in just a minute. But when you do preview, here I am, I'm getting those bullets. Now, what I'm doing what I really want to end there, and here's the idea. When you've written a bullet like this, it's hard for you to remember or realize, well, what did I mean by that bullet? What's the text behind it? What's the explanatory language behind that? So when I have bullets that actually I need to drill deeper into them, I want to be able to talk about what I'm doing. Bullet 1 means this. Bullet 2 means that. What I will often do, and again, thinking about this idea of content, structure, and design, which we're going to get to in just a minute, my goal in the beginning is content, right? Then I'll deal with structure and design. So when I first am doing Tinderboxing, I'm going to think about content. So I've got bullet 1, and so this is all about producing content, right? Maybe this is what bullet 1's about. And we'll say bullet 1, content, right? And then we can say bullet 2 is about structure. Right. And then so on and so on. So what we're essentially doing now in this process is we're creating content that lets me think about, all right, I've got this idea called bullet 1 content, and I've got this idea called bullet 1 structure. And what I actually want to do is I want to be able to write paragraphs or text about this, or maybe insert an image about this that helps me remember what I meant by that bullet and what the details are. But in the particular presentation that I want to give, I don't actually want all of the text. What I really want is just the bullet. So, and again, I'll get back to explaining this in just a minute. But if you look here, Tinderbox gives you this ability to do structure. And essentially what I'm telling Tinderbox to do is, hey, Tinderbox, go out, use your action code to collect a list of the children's names, give me those lists, wrap them up into those lead tags, which Bill was just talking about, and then I want you to output structure with those list of bullets. And so when you do it that way, watch what happens. I go like this, and voila. I now get my paragraph with my 4 bullets, with the structure, and I'm not polluting my content with the details of that bullet. Now, if I wanted to then go in and manipulate my template, I could easily do that. And I could say Tinderbox name. I'm going to change this template real quick. I'm going to say Tinderbox name ID. And again, don't worry about, I'll explain all of this stuff in just a minute. And I'll say this time I want name. Come on.
Got your caps lock on.
Yeah. Name X plus comma. Oops. Plus comma. Getting excited. Plus text X. Okay? So now what I'm telling Tinderbox is Don't go grab the names of the notes. That I want you to do is grab the IDs of the child notes, and then I can then grab the name of that child note and the text of that child note. Now watch what happens when I do that. I get each of the individual bullets, but now I'm grabbing all of their text. And so this is an idea, and then let's say, okay, now what we want to start doing is let's format that a little bit. What I now want to do is do a B tag here, and a B tag there to bold the name. And now let's go back. Now I got bulleted names with the descriptions of each of their text. And that's the power of Tinderbox. That's a great example of separating content development from structure development, from design development. And again, I want to start wrapping this up a little bit so I can get back to the main purpose of today's session to explain that idea of content structure and design. Yeah, Chuck.
I was just going to comment that I think there's a little bit of a disconnect between where you're going and where someone who's just approaching Tinderbox would be coming from. Tinderbox certainly started out as a note-taking tool in which you worked in Tinderbox and you stayed within that environment. Whereas you're dealing with a much richer application context where you're not only using Tinderbox to manage information, you're using Tinderbox to export that information into a variety of formats. So if somebody's just doing the basics with Tinderbox, using the RTF built-in format is just fine and doesn't particularly cause problems. It can be a great documentation note-taking tool. And a few of the tricks that you introduced at the very beginning around, how do you straighten out some of the importing of erroneous styles or unintended styles from other documents is probably the most useful advice because it just gets you around some of those problems. So it's an observation that.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, Chuck. It is just fine, but I would also argue, you're hamstringing yourself. If you think down the road a little bit farther, and you do a little bit of, and I wouldn't even call it extra work. You realize that if you do something earlier in the beginning of the process, you can save yourself a hell of a lot of time at the end once you actually start figuring out what you really want to do. And this is partly saying, look, I've been at this now, every week for probably 40 to 80 hours a week, or probably 80 to 100 hours a week in Tinderbox for now 2 years. And this is what, my insights that I've resulted into. I started with just what you were saying, use the ruler, put in the bullets, it's just fine. And then as I learned what this could do for me, I realized that I could be saving myself a ton of time by just, making clean content in so that I can get clean content out.
Yeah, I am in no way arguing with your points. I'm merely observing that somebody may find it comfortable to stick with the built-in features. I use both.
Completely agree.
And so
start where you're comfortable and then grow from there.
Do is say, right, just note that there's, you're taking a bit of a leap here and going into the power of Tinderbox for exporting into a variety of formats and the incredible flexibility Tinderbox gives you to work at one level with, as you've been calling it, pure, unpolluted text, but yet get out many different formats. And I completely agree with that. I'm just saying you don't have to use it that way, and
right.
It might be a little bit daunting to some people to.
Although, Chuck, I do. Let's just stay in the pure content note-taking discussion. We can go back to what Marshall McLuhan taught us in 1964. The medium is the message, and the cleaner your medium can be, the cleaner your message can be. And then if you want to start, leveraging all of the views of Tinderbox, the cleaner your content is, the cleaner the views will be to be able to help you understand what your content is telling you. So
and I just observed cleanliness of the content is in the eye of the person who's authoring it. So it doesn't matter. I just wanted.
Yeah, no, I agree, and we don't need to argue about it. You're right, and you're absolutely.
I sense there's some people here who are getting just started, and.
Yeah. But again, I want to get
to
the.
I want to get to the valuable.
I want to get to the early, the whole point of what we wanted to talk about today too, to address the point you were in. Mr. Bruce, you've had your hand up a while.
Well, a couple things. First of all, I mean, Chuck's point to me is exactly on target, only because, Michael, what you're describing is perfect. And I think that it is sort of the holy grail of where people would get to. But also, you know, there are many applications where that's number one, someone doesn't have the expertise, and two, they can get what they need without going down that. But I think that learning what you're describing is absolutely, I won't call it an essential skill, a valuable skill. My question is a little bit different in that using bullets, I have a project that I have to work on where I'm taking a listserv set of guidelines that currently is just kind of 1, 2, 3, and I'm planning to put it in an outline format of 1.1, 1.2, and so forth as the bullet. And I'd like to do that in Tinderbox. My go-to for it at the moment is probably Omni Outliner. But I'm wondering if you have any thoughts on doing something like, I know that there is a way, you know, using more complex code than I can currently use to.
So do you have a website where you're pulling lists from?
Say that again?
Do you have a website URL you can give me right now that you're pulling lists from, and we can just do it?
Yeah, I do.
You know, drop it in the chat and let's pull a list. What?
Does that pull us away from anything?
No,
that you
no.
have
Let's do
planned
it.
or
Let's do it
that
real
we're
quick.
doing?
Now, remember, the whole point of these work meetups is to talk about what you guys want to talk about. So if we're solving specific problems, great. But in about 10 minutes, I do want to switch to the formal presentation.
Pop it in.
And Thorsten, great to see you, man. I thanks for joining. You've had your hand raised.
Yeah, just a question to the bullet thing. You know, that's a very typical software development problem. Saying, okay, you know, I want to structure stuff in a way that it is really atomic, so that I can reuse that part somewhere else. But normally that is also coming along with a dedicated tool, which is called refactoring tools, so that, you know, you can refactor the structure easily. And that is something that I'm at least partly missing, or maybe I didn't found it in the box. That, for example, that the tool is redoing that for me, that I don't have to add that script manually, that I just can go to the bullet and say, hey, convert that bullet into a chart. Just with one click. Is that something that is there?
Yeah, you can do that with action code. You can do that with the application of different templates. And I'll be demonstrating some of that in just a minute. And it's very cool to see part of my life, the other part of my life, showing up on Tinderbox. Thorsten's actually in my industry, so I had no idea you were a Tinderboxer too. That makes you even cooler. And by the way, Mr. Anderson, I don't know if you know this about Thorsten, but he actually interned with Engelbart.
Oh, right.
So, yeah, very cool. All right, Bruce.
Michael, I put in one link, and I'm going to put in the second link, which we may or may not need.
All right.
So what I have here as a task is that I'm taking this document and I want to convert it into a very robust outline. So rule 1 just becomes 1, and then there's many comments in here that will become 1.1, 1.2,
Okay.
you know, maybe even 1.1.3, that kind of thing.
So for the sake
and then
of
I'm going to have a second list that I have to do the same with, so I can figure out where they're aligned and where they're different, and then I'll be making decisions that I'm recommending to a board of directors about what the final product should look like.
Okay.
You cannot believe how much listserv activity can be generated over a single rule on here. And somehow, as taking on the position of technology chair, thinking nothing of the listserv, apparently I'm now in charge of the listserv.
Got it.
So I get these comments and questions that I'm the new Dear Abby.
Awesome. So for the sake of demo, let's say I just want to grab these first lists right here. Rules 1 through 3.
Just do one of them. I don't obviously.
Right. So I'm going to grab that text,
but just any part of it, and then with a second link, I want to be able to ideally in columns or tabs, have them side by side and be able to start to create some linkage so I can figure out where, what is going to be basically what it is that is national policy, what is local policy, what am I keeping, what am I taking away, what am I adding that's new that's not in either of them.
Okay, so and that will be some interesting ideas first, but before I show you, Mark, you have your hand up?
I'll come in after this. I got some roundup and infill points, but I think they'll drag us off.
So here,
just briefly, but I'll do it after you've done this.
Okay. So here's your list, right? And I'm going to go ahead now and paste that content in. And so if I paste that content in, you'll see it's got some formatting in here. So I'm just going to hit undo, and then use my muscle memory to paste it in without formatting. And you see essentially now what I've given myself is a list of is a block of text that we've just copied from the website.
Right.
Correct. So now what I can do here is I can look at it, and if if you were using regex, you could use some fancy rules and all of that. If I just want to do it quick and dirty, and the reason why I would use regex is if this was a list that I was going to be redoing all of the time. I mean, so one of the things you want to think about is Tinderbox gives you the affordance of doing a lot of automations. But you really only need to go down that path if you're going to do something more than 2 or 3 times.
This should be a one-timer.
If it's just a one-timer, then you're going to want to do some manual functionality. And what you'll do is...
remember, we're talking about me.
Yeah, I know. And what you'll do is you'll go up to Note, and you'll use the explode function right here.
Yep.
So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go here, and I'm going to quickly explode this note. And I'm going to break it by delimiter. So you can break it by paragraph. And this is also in regex. By the way, we talked about regex earlier. In computer language, a backslash like this and an N is the language for a line break. So that's telling Tinderbox to input a line break. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to say, hey, Tinderbox, I want you to basically do a line break of every element of that list. And now I'm going to put ourselves into outline mode. And you'll see here now I've got an exploded list of those elements. Right? And I can then go and kind of move this out of the exploded list. And now I can go through and see what I want. So, okay, so this was our heading. So I'm going to tab that in, and now that's become rule 1. Now this is rule A, and you notice that it kind of lost the copyright name. So I might, there's ways to automate that, but for now I'm just going to clean it up real quick. And that was part of this one. And this one is part of that one. And this one was part of that one. And I'm just kind of triaging the content. And now this is rule 2, rule 3, and then this was the text that was part of rule 3 that was underneath that. So I can go ahead and embed that in, or if I want to, I can remerge it back up here like that. Right, so now I have a complete sentence. And so then if I go open up our preview in text pane, you'll see, just a minute, I've got to apply a template real quick. And go like that. And there is our broken down list of rules. Right? And then later, if you wanted to automate it and number it and do stuff like that, you can. But what this is really nice is it's now giving you each rule in its own little discrete set of notes. What you could also do tier 2, and this is where action code could become really interesting. So these clauses are clauses of rule 1. So
right.
There is an interesting capability in Tinderbox called on add. So I'm gonna, whoops, I just accidentally hit command quit.
I'm going to interject from Bruce's comment. What if I want to change those A's and B's to 1.1 and 1.2?
Yeah, I'll get to that. I'll get to that in just a minute.
Okay.
So let me go here. I'm going to move these out of the rule 1, and again, Tinderbox has this functionality called on adds, which I'll be reviewing in about 2 minutes. And I'm going to say on add. Let's create a new user prototype while we're about it, and we'll say. For now, I'll just use an existing prototype called myString. Right? And I'm going to say on add. Let me do this. I'm going to add my string to these as well. And I'll be showing you how to, in my next demo, I'll be showing you how to automate some of these steps. My string and my string. And this is a great example of where attributes are your friend. So essentially what I'm going to say is on add, I want my string to equal my string parent. Right, and I'm going to explain this right now. And let's say, so what we're saying is as I'm triaging and kind of curating my content, I'm saying this parent note is rule 1. And then what I'm saying is when I add a child to this parent note, rule 1, I want the child note to inherit the my string value of, I want the child to inherit the my string value of its parent. So watch what happens. When I tab these in, these are now effectively becoming a child of rule 1, and you'll see they've automatically inherited rule 1. So that way I know this copyright clause is part of rule 1. And if I pop over to the map view and do that, you'll see I've got this fancy little map view. And here's our list. And I can drill down even further. And here's rule 1. And you'll hear clause C. That on add function works in map view too. So if I'm now going to drag on rule C over onto this note, go like that, you'll now see that rule C has gotten on. And now if I go back to the outline view, it's just easier. You'll now see that rule C has also adopted rule 1. So this is a really kind of cool way for you to be, giving values to, and because later you can search on that.
Okay, so I'm trying to, I think that there's a disconnect in my understanding of this. So you made and linked the 3 subcategories as children. They were already children of rule 1. You've now codified that with the on add so that it's linked. But I guess I'm just not understanding, and
and maybe I jumped a step hard. I didn't have to do this on add functionality, but let's say in rule 2, there was also a note called copyright. I'm just for example, right? So, and I'm going to put these in order. So let's say in rule 2 there was also a note called copyright. What's distinguishing this copyright from that copyright? How would
that's what I have to go through and figure out.
Right, but imagine with Tinderbox, you could say, you know what? This copyright is rule 2. This copyright is rule 1. That's the power of attributes, because essentially what you can do is you can take your notes and start adding attribute values to your notes to help distinguish them and separate them from other notes.
All right. Well, I will play with this. I followed what you did so far. I am not, given what my task is, I'm not yet sure how this moves me forward. In other words, my task is to take number 1, this document, and to really break it down. And I could use rule 1 ABC and then create my own, because it's somewhat uneven in terms of the structure of it.
Right.
And our local set of rules derives from this one, but apparently in places is more restrictive. For example, there's a 250 word limit that gets people rejected and gets them upset. There's no 250 rule limit in the national version.
Got it.
So will I remove that? Will I make it a guideline? Things of that nature. So I want to align the 2 documents, see what the differences are, and then produce a 3rd document that is my version of what I think is going to be most helpful.
Right, and what I would do there, and I actually just learned this like 3 days ago, there's actually an underlying command line code on the Mac OS called diff that you can actually use to compare different files, and I think we could apply that in your context. The other issue that we raised was, do you really, is it really going to benefit you at this time to call this 1, call this 1 1, call this 1 2 1 2 2? Like, do you really need that numbering right now or not? And do you need it for a structural, content purpose, or is it more just for your visual assessment of what's going on?
It's going to be, right now what's happening is people, obviously when someone has a post rejected, that's usually upsetting to someone. So I'm trying to make it as clear as possible that, okay, APA rule 3.1 says you can't discuss fees because that's an antitrust violation. Mm-hmm. And my plan was to actually combine this with with Text Expander to be able to let staff who are reviewing this, the moderators, would then just be able to go in, type, and using Text Expander, you would just fill in certain blanks like the person's name and things like that to make it a bit friendlier. Mm-hmm. So that's where I was headed with this, but the document that I'm going to produce, I want it to be granular. Yeah. Because what's happening is I'm seeing a lot of different rules lumped together and somewhat arbitrary, and people are told, well, you violated all of these things, and they don't understand.
Right. So again, I think so what you're really asking for, Bruce, is a multi-step process of curating the content, structuring the content, and then designing the content in a way that's pleasant to the human. And that's a multi-step process to go through that.
Exactly.
And what we've just started is the first step of the curation process. So I think that's a place to start. We don't have enough time to go through all of the steps that you want to achieve.
No, I'm not.
But that gives you the first step.
That. I appreciate that.
Okay. I do want to give enough time for our scheduled purpose for today's call. So I want to kind of wrap this up. Mr. Anderson, then Frederick, and then we'll do the next.
So I'll go very quickly then. Thorsten earlier on said it was asking about sync between things and multi-user. I think I'd just say that Tinderbox was never designed from the ground up as a multi-user or synced app. It can has the system watch folders so it can look at some things and tell you if the thing it's watched has changed. But it is inherently not, so it's designed as a single user workspace. So you can share a TBX document with somebody else or with yourself on another computer, but you need to remember to close it in one place before you open it in another in case you save back. So if you start from that premise, the answer sort of is probably no, but that may save you a few false steps. Which leads me on to channeling my inner Bruce and stepping back to the point made earlier by I think it's Dave, about, some of what we're looking at is quite complex starting out. Is I think it's useful to just throw in a tiny bit of history here. So Tinderbox is now 22 years old, which is like, I don't know, eons in software terms. And its antecedents actually go back to the mid-'80s to Storyspace, which was used for making literary hypertext. And so there's a lot behind it, and which explains some of the odd choices you may see. So back in the 2000s, the two things Mark Bernstein wanted to do with this was to do personal note-taking and to do blogging. And at the time then and still now, the way to share with the world is actually through HTML, if you want to separate content and structure. And that's why when Michael was showing some stuff earlier, and you may have seen a template that held this funny stuff with angle brackets in. And if you're not used to HTML, that's all it is. You've probably heard of the term, you may not know how to do it. But that's how the magic of the really complex export in Tinderbox happens. But you don't have to use it. You certainly don't have to use it on day one. So don't worry if you're seeing things that seem to be far removed from where you are if you're starting out at the moment. You can take notes as you want, just dump stuff in. And if that's all you're doing at this point, don't worry. If you know at outset that you're going to be sharing this, you're going to publish a paper, or you're going to present a report for other people, then I would encourage you to get on board with some of the things that Michael is presenting, because it will save you a ton of time in the long term. But at the same time, don't feel obliged. If you feel it's too much overload, don't worry if you don't, know what to do in that more complex stuff on day one. You'll find just taking notes. And the point about lists is that if you wanted to turn something into listings in using sort of RTF and putting numbers, I think the bulleted list thing will work. So if you wanted to go down the line of treating it like text edit, you can. I wouldn't encourage you. I've certainly, it's caused me nothing but pain over time. If I've learned one thing over time is just don't write style text unless you need to.
Yes. I have too.
Most of the time it's a prop, and it arises because unintentionally people made, they made Word, which is, the main standard. And it was well-intentioned, but it wasn't a good step. So you spend a lot of your time wasted making it look nice and sexy, and actually what you're not doing is thinking about what you're writing.
Okay.
So I would encourage you to not worry too much. If you find yourself worrying that the text is the wrong size or it's got the wrong bullet number, it's Mother Nature saying to you, you're probably doing it wrong.
Well, wait a minute. I want to pause you on that real quick. Really important point. If you're worrying about that when you're writing your content, that is true.
Yeah.
When you're worrying about that when you're trying to do your design and your output, then that's not true. Like I just spent 2 days dealing with APA academic styling that almost killed me with my doctoral dissertation chair. I have never gone to that level of detail in a document in my entire life. Index this over 2.31 inches and make sure there's no spaces and blah, blah, blah. But that's why you want to start separating content from structure from design, because it affords you to do what's needed to be done at each stage. Again, we only have a few minutes left, so I don't want to.
I got one tiny other bit just relates. So the tail end of this whole thing about HTML. So HTML export was there in Tinderbox from the get-go, and a lot of people ask, well, can I preview the thing I'm going to export in Tinderbox so I don't waste time exporting a page to find it's wrong and redo it, which is the birth of the preview panel that people use a lot. And that has gone a step further, that if people like to use stuff like Markdown, you effectively can look at a style page in Tinderbox and export nothing. I only mention this because you'll see this talked about in the forums, and different people will be doing different things. But it's worth realizing that the preview arrived as a way to preview stuff you would export. And if you just bear that in mind, it might help you when you're understanding why you can't see something in a particular view.
Okay.
So it wasn't, the whole idea here again is to move you away from having to use styled text if you don't need to. If you need to and you like to and you want to, that's absolutely fine, and lots of people do that. And there are mechanisms where you can write stuff in style text and indeed export it as that. So that still works. So it's a broad church here. It's a big toolbox. Lots of people do things differently. So don't feel obliged to do what everybody else does. I'll pass back to Mike.
All right, Frederick.
Yeah, really briefly to Bruce's point of wanting to compare two policies and see how they align, for example, a patent policy or whatever. It sounds like what you would do is explode each one into notes and then maybe line up the notes in the map view and see where they line up or don't, and probably be done. I don't know, maybe you could use links or something more clever, but it seems to me that if the policies aren't too big, you could just do it in the map view.
That's an interesting thought. Thank you. I appreciate that.
You could do that, and if you then wanted to get programmatic, there is this, as I said, this command line code called diff that's actually inherently in the Mac OS that you could leverage. And I have a feeling, and I can, if I get time later today, I'll play with it, where you could actually run Note A and Note B through the command line out of Tinderbox and have the Mac app pop it up and show you the diffs.
But it's not a diff of the words; it's the concepts in the policies. They might word it differently. So
that's my concern.
So you line up the notes. You just make a note for each concept, each policy point, and then line them up physically in the map view, and then you'll see where they don't line up. You have something.
So, and what you could do, Bruce, on that strategy too. Let's say like policy 1, right? And or policy 1.
Michael, say it again if you don't mind. You broke up for me for a second.
Well, I'm just saying. Let's say you had policy 1, policy 2, claim A, and you had policy 1. Claim A, right? You're just kind of, if you got to the point where you had like the parity between the two, the way I would go about doing that is I would say, okay, here's 1, here's 2. I would compare them. I can look at them in map view as they said, and and you could actually, if you expand them big enough, you could actually see the text, in these windows like this.
So I was planning to create an attribute that indicated whether they were the same or different.
Great idea too. But to your point of the kind of point I'm making right now is you could then have my note about this. And so as you're looking at the policies, you can then actually create a little note that says, this is where they're different. So that way you actually have a memorialized in your own mind too. When you're doing that analysis, you can write down where these two things differ and why, and capture that insight.
Yes, that's very useful. Yes.
Right. That's the way I would do it. Now, there's cleaner ways to, like, when it gets bigger, we'll figure out strategies on how to do that with you. But I love that idea of comparing the two in map view.
Well, I'll be working on this. So,
and there are some interesting Tinderbox tools too. I don't remember how to do it right now, but right here, map size. I think I should be able to do that, and you should be able to like change some of the attributes in Tinderbox to actually make that text bigger if you want to make it more readable on screen. So there's strategies like that too we can tweak on your attributes. Okay. So Thorsten, Mark, and then we really do need to move on to this. I only have 15 minutes left. So Thorsten, comment?
Okay. Yes. So to separate design and content is actually a concept like it was in LaTeX like that already. So that's obvious, I would say. But what I'm still struggling with is really saying, okay, how can I do easily semantic refactoring beside of just using templates? Because templates will just help me if the structure can exactly stay the same. But if there's a semantic restructuring should include also splitting things which were, in one big chunk into several ones. Are there tools in the box that I could do so?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the point of action code. So Thorsten, maybe you and I can have an offline one-on-one call, and I'll walk you through some of the more complex stuff. Because you know code, so I think we'll be able to geek out pretty solidly.
I was part of the team who was programming in Smalltalk the XSS the analyst. So that was a content refactoring tool for some of your governments in the US. So yes, let us have an offsite session.
So you've got my link. Schedule a meeting with me. So in these last 10 minutes or 15 minutes, let me now show you a way that I like to. I've started to learn how to explain Tinderbox to people. And Mary Beth, if you can for me, you and I actually had a extensive conversation yesterday, and we ran into an exact issue that you were contended with. So when I call it working in the puppy mill software or working in the presentation layer software, we've all been trained for the last 20 or 30 years to use Microsoft Word or Apple Pages or whatever that is, and that software is not bad inherently. The challenge with that software, though, is it's intermixing design, structure, and content all into the same interface. And while that can be really great for most situations and most use cases, the problem that I've experienced when doing that is, one, it landlocks your content into that particular environment. Two, it constrains your thinking. So when you're in Microsoft Word, it's forcing you into linear thinking. When you're in Excel, it's forcing you into tabular thinking. When you're in PowerPoint, it's forcing you into PowerPoint bullet point thinking. And that constraint of working in design software and structure software is incredibly limiting. Not to mention the fact, as Mark Anderson already pointed up, what it also does too is it trains you to chase the design, and you waste a ton of time redesigning, relabeling, recoloring, recoding, and it's a pain in the butt. Moreover, and this is an insight I got when Mark and I were playing with this idea a couple days ago, the insight that we got too is when you're in design presentation layer software, when you make a change to a piece of content, especially in like Microsoft Word, when you're adjusting headings and such, you don't necessarily know the ramifications of that change that will have on you downstream. So when you change a style or you change a particular piece of content, that style or structure change that you end up doing could end up changing your entire document unknowingly to you. and then it could make it difficult for you to be able to reverse it. And I don't know how many of you have spent just, how many hours, if not years of your life screwing around with PowerPoint is just a nightmare. And Mary Beth and I just addressed this. She just wrote a book called the 5 Steps to Solo Travel for Women. It's absolutely exceptional. I'll encourage you to go to read it. Mary Beth, you might want to drop a link in the chat for your book. But the second I got it, I downloaded the Kindle version of the PDF, and the first thing we noticed was that the Kindle version of the PDF wasn't working. And we believe that's because she wrote it in Word, and when that got translated to .mobi, the design software had missed a bunch of necessary tags she needed to have her outlining working. And so there was a great example where the content looked great in Word, but when it actually got put into practical use, sorry, my boss wants to go out and pee. When it got into practical use, it caused problems for her. And so what this methodology that I'm about to show you and the way of thinking about Tinderbox, it will separate those elements together. So before I move on, what do you any comments on that statement? If not, let's jump right in. So this is the most expeditious way I've been able to figure out how to explain Tinderbox to people. So if you think about this idea of, we'll call it, my content in Tinderbox. Right, and we're just going to start brainstorming content. Tinderbox, all right? And we're going to create a note called content. We'll create a note called structure. We'll create a note called design. And we're just going to start brainstorming some ideas and content. And so there is some basic structure in the way I'm organizing my content. So I've got content, I've got structure, and I've got design. And these are really, really important concepts when you're thinking about the use of managing your ideas. And Tinderbox has some great capability around like using stamps and different ways of helping you visualize your content as you are as you're thinking through how I'm making it. So there's actually a Venn diagrammy. There is kind of an overlay of these ideas of content design and how they work when you're doing it. And we've been talking extensively throughout today's call on this idea that you change content, structure, and design. And by separating your thoughts and ideas into these different boxes, it really helps you curate and nurture your content. Now, earlier too, one of the members of our call today proposed this idea of the 5 C's of knowledge management. 5 C's, which is a knowledge management, which is a kind of a process that I've been playing with now for about a year and a half or so, and I'm writing a book on it. And and what Tinderbox allows us to do in this concept is we can go ahead here and we can first collect our insights and knowledge. I call this the collection stage, or collect. And this is really what Bruce was talking about when he's like collecting the lists from the different policies. Then what you'll do is you'll go curate that list. All right, so we're going to go curate the list. And then as we're going through this process, collection and curation kind of go hand in hand, as we were showing. Here's the policy, and then you have rule 1. Then what we'll want to do is, hang on. All right, then what we'll want to do is, in this process of collection and curation, that's going to stimulate some new ideas for you. And you're going to start creating your own new and unique insights. And so collection leads to creation. And then as I've been going through this, and I realized, what? I actually missed a step in the idea of this process. Is there's actually this idea of collaboration. Right? And what you do in collaboration is you kind of work with other people. And what I found as I do this is collaboration leads to more collection. Curation leads to more collaboration. Collaboration leads to more curation. So this kind of goes both ways. And creation also facilitates kind of a bi-directional relationship with collaboration. So when we're doing knowledge management, there's this really interesting cycle of creation of insight that happens here. And then over time, when you're ready and when your content and your ideas and your thoughts get, hit a certain mass and they're ready to get promoted, you can then contribute. Right? And so essentially your creations go into the next stage of the content management process, which is contribution, where you can actually contribute your knowledge. And here's what's really powerful about this is, by using the thought process of your knowledge management, content structure and design, you're then able to collect all your notes, curate your notes, create your insights, and then from here, you then can decide, is this a Word document? Is this an HTML document? Is this a PowerPoint? Is this a podcast? Is this a webinar? Right? You have the flexibility to kind of choose what the output is going to be for your contribution process. And then to Thorsten's point earlier, if you later need to refactor your insights, I want to now, move this from a Word document to a PowerPoint file, to an HTML document, you can. And not only can you refactor that content, you can repurpose it in all of these different ways. And it creates an immense amount of consistency for you and when doing that. Not to mention the fact, if you're then using other applications and other tools like Zotero or DevonThink and other supporting tools, you can actually start citing your content at the very stage of collection. You can cite your content at the moments of creation. You can cite your content with your collaborators at the moment of collaboration. And so therefore you can maintain provenance of your thoughts and ideas as this process is going. So by the time you get to your output stage, you already have provenance. It's already in your words. This is the Zettelkosting concepts, right? They're already in your words. It's already, you know the provenance, and all of that kind of can automatically happen for you in the process. So this is the whole idea of what I call the 5 C's of knowledge management. And we're just going to go use the Option key, highlight all of these at once, and bury those into here. And so now we've got the 5 C's of knowledge management. Now, when we talk about content structure and design, let's think about our content. Now, there are other elements that Tinderbox affords you. They've got, and we're not going to, I'll explain what these are later, but Tinderbox has this idea of prototypes and has this idea called attributes. And as we were explaining earlier in attributes, let's go head up here, and let's say on this note called Tinderbox content in Tinderbox, we're going to add the attribute URL, and we're going to put in the URL eastgate.com. So I'm basically populating an attribute of this note called eastgate.com. And now let me kind of take a step back and explain really quickly in what an attribute is. And what a note is. So if you're thinking about a note in Tinderbox, a note is like a stem cell. When I go like this, it's a stem cell. It has all of the potential in the world. I haven't done anything with it. It can become a heart cell. It can be a lump cell. It can be anything you want. And in Tinderbox, you have this idea called attributes. And attributes are essentially all of the kind of ways that Tinderbox uses to actually manage it itself. And you can also create your own attributes. So if I go like this and I say, I don't know, LinkedIn URL, right? So I can actually generate and create my own attributes.
Well, welcome everyone. It's great to see this very nice turnout.
I'm sorry. Is somebody on mute? Who's speaking?
Sorry, it's my.
Got it. Okay, so I've now got this ability to create my own attributes as well. So I can generate any number of attributes. Some of my Tinderbox files have over 500 attributes. So for me, I look at the Tinderbox's ability of giving me this concept of prototypes and this concept of attributes as being a really powerful way of nurturing content. And when you're looking at a note, this note here, this space right up here, is a attribute called name. This space right in here is an attribute called text, right? So again, Tinderbox is using all of these different attributes to make this idea here. This space right up here is just another attribute called displayed attribute. So watch this. And this gives you a sense of the way we can curate Tinderbox. You essentially say, I'm telling this note to populate the attribute, displayed attribute, with the attributes of URL and LinkedIn URL. So if I copy that and go over to this untitled attribute and say, look, I want I want to apply that here too. You can see I've now modified the value of the displayed attributes of the note untitled with the attributes from that I did earlier there. So Tinderbox gives you this incredible affordance for administering and managing content. Tinderbox also gives you the ability to manage structure. So let me go ahead and drop some lorem ipsum in here, and I'll just show that in a minute. So I've got some structure, and I've got some design, and now I'm going to drop my structure in here, and I'm going to drop in my design, and now I'm going to pop over to my outline view, and you'll see I've now got my elements here. So I've got content, and that content, we can talk about attributes, we can talk about prototypes, we can talk about content itself, we can talk about structure, we can talk about design. And so essentially what we've done is we've started mastering and developing our content, our ideas, our thoughts. You know, later down the road, as we're curating our content, we can be linking notes. There's just a lot of other affordances that we can do there. Now, in the last few minutes that we have, I want to show you structure. Now, what Tinderbox does is it has we use the structure of the internet when we're using Tinderbox. So if I go to File, and then I go to File, Built-in Templates, and HTML, I get an HTML template that I can now apply to my notes. And now you'll see here, if I am going about the process of doing this, I can now go ahead, and if I turn on the Show Text Pane selector, and I view my notes, you'll now see I'm able to see that structure of the notes. And let me take a look, let me show you what's going on. Again, you can learn this over time. There's a wonderful resource for learning HTML and learning about it. I reference this nearly every day, called the WC3C Schools. It teaches you HTML and CSS. And all this document is just saying is, hey, I'm an HTML page. Between these these tags here, this is the non-visible elements of an HTML page that you don't see. Everything between the body tag is what you see. And so when you're looking at this template, templates is basically saying, stick the title here, wrap the title of this note around heading 1 tags. You're familiar with heading 1 tags from Microsoft Word. Drop the text in the note here. And then for any of the children of this note, i.e. notes that are subsequently descending through the containers of this note, I want you to process them with the template HTML item, which can be found from this path. And if I go look at HTML item, you'll see what it's doing is it's wrapping all HTML children in the heading 2 tag. So when I look at this, you'll see all of the notes are structured in this way. And if you look here and we look at the export code, you'll see that every note is structured in its heading 1, heading 2s, etc. Now what we want to do is we want to say, well, what if I want my children of this HTML of these sub-childrens to actually be heading 3s? We're talking about structure now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy another note. I'm going to uniquely name this note 2. I'm going to name this note 2 here because I'm just designating its path. And you'll see here now when I do that, what did I do wrong here? And I don't think
the 2 is in different places.
What?
The heading, the HTML item 2 is different than item. You edited different ones.
No, I didn't.
You didn't?
No, and what I'm gonna do real quick is I'm gonna reinstall my templates because I think they didn't come in right. I'll go template HTML. There they are. Why is my heading codes not coming in right on this file? I don't know why. All right, so if I go here and I go 2, and let's apply the HTML like that, and let's see what's going on with my export. Yeah, it should work.
I noticed you've somehow got two notes that are prototypes, both called HTML. One of them's probably, yep. If you right click the icon next to the prototype, HTML is listed, is or was when you did last. Right click.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm wondering what.
Right.
Now, let me delete.
One of them's wrong. So.
Yeah, this is just what happens when you do live demos like this. So let me go here and put that back in. All right. And now we'll apply our HTML. That's funny. All right, let me go ahead and do this. I'm going to start over. I don't know what I did wrong with this document. We'll just give you an example like this. Paste in my code. Go to outline. You'll see that we have structure. Now I'm going to go ahead and paste. Oh, this is why. Okay. Now if I go back in and put in my templates, you'll see here I had inadvertently copied the HTML prototype. So there's my text. Now if I go and modify my template here, this is now working the way I expect it to work. I'll go and said, I'm going to change this to 2. Nope, wrong one. I'm going to change. I want to change that to 2 and that name to 2. And so essentially what we're doing now is we're telling Tinderbox, we're saying, hey, we're going to use HTML to define the structure of our output. So now what we're doing is we're saying, hey, Tinderbox, for the top note selected, apply this template. And then we're saying for the children of this note, apply this template. And then we're saying for the children of the children, apply this template. And then when we do that, you'll see that the children of the children formatting is different. So we're now getting a tighter structure. And now in the last few minutes, I want to show you design, and then we're done. Now in HTML parlance, what we do with design is we use what's called CSS. And simply put, CSS gives you the ability to instruct design to a website. So let's say we're now saying, hey, Tinderbox, what I want you to do is I want you to essentially take every H3 that we have in the file, and I want you to make its color red. And again, you'll learn the syntax of this type of writing later. But essentially, now what I'm telling you is, Tinderbox, make all H3 color equals red. And then then to add that command to the structure, I want to go up into the non-visible elements of the HTML page and say, hey, Tinderbox, I want you to take a style sheet, and I basically want to have you take the value of the text of the note named CSS and stick it there. Okay, so essentially what we've done is we've created a bunch of notes, we built some structure for our notes, and then we created another note called for our styles, and we're now adding that style into the structure of our notes. And so now what you're going to see is all of our heading 3s are now red. So this is basically the simple, the way to think about and envision what Tinderbox is enabling you to do. What Tinderbox is enabling you to do is essentially produce content, structure, and design, separate those elements, and then you can be able to repurpose your content and the output in any way you want. And to show you what that can do when you get really and more complex about it, you'll see I have a number of notes here. I've got some notes here, I've got some notes here, I've got a quote from Tom. I have another note that's got some children bullets. I have another note here, I've got another note here. Down here, I've got a note that's a person, and that person's got an image associated with them with other attributes. Down here at the level 8 area, I've got some other notes, and we can call this one level 9. And then you'll see down here, I've got another note that's I've labeled as a task folder, and you'll see I now have here individual notes. And if we're looking at each of the individual notes, I can start applying individual templates. Tasks can look like this. Tasks folders can look like this. Individual users can look like that. Bulleted lists can look like that. Quotes can look like this. And then when you actually cascade them all up, you can have a complete output that looks like this. So you can actually have Tinderbox, and you say, look, if I actually want to include my children in that output, I can go ahead and tweak some different methods there. Other things that you can do here is this is styled in academic using APA style formatting. And when you're using APA says any heading 4s or heading 5s, this needs to be bulleted with a period and then text right after that. Heading 5s need to be italicized in bold with headings right after that. Now let's say though I'm not going to be doing my academic wonkiness now. I actually want to do it in my professional template. All I now need to do is I don't need to change structure. I don't need to change content. I can just change style. And now I get a different style. And my heading 4s are now different. My heading 5s are now different. My templates are now formatted differently. Because that style for that type particular publisher requires something different. And so this is the power you can get from separating content from templates from style. And again, I know I just dumped a whole lot on you, but I wanted to show you the potential of this tool. And as we've been saying time and time again, if you want to do something like this, just contact us on the forum and we'll show you what to do. So long story short, that's Tinderbox. What do you guys think? What's your reaction on that?
Well, this is great. There's a lot to learn, obviously, but it's really good.
Can I bring it back to our original discussion about 3 bullets?
Yes.
And separating the structure from the content. Suppose, just for a simple example, I've got a recipe for potato salad, and I don't want to have a separate note like this just represents for every single step in my recipe. I'd like to have a list right there in the text. Would I be able to show my numbered list or my unordered list right in the text, separating the structure from the content?
Well, and in that regard, and this is where you can get really simple. You can just say, item ingredient 1.
So using Markdown.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I was wondering, can you do it with a template for each line item?
You can. So let's do this. There's 2 ways to do that. We can do this. 3, right? So let's say you're rapidly brainstorming what your recipe is, ingredient 1, 2, and 3. And then if you wanted to do a template for that each line item, what I would do is, and remember too, as we talked about earlier, you may want to explode this so that each ingredient, and then we'll go ahead and look at this in outline view. Sorry.
So it just seems like my document would get really long. I mean, that's a level of granularity, which seems...
well, again, you may not want to you may not want to do it that way, but how do you actually define or describe what that ingredient is? But if you wanted to do this, at some level, you've got to tell Tinderbox that you want this to be bullets.
Yeah.
And it's not going to know. If you just do this, Tinderbox is just going to see this as yet paragraphs of text. You're not telling it that this needs to be bullets. So in some way, you need to tell Tinderbox that I want this text not to be paragraphs of text, but I want them to be bullets.
Right. What I'm trying to get at is the concept of separating structure from content. Sounds like a really neat idea. But, so can I do it at this level within?
So on that note, for me, here's the way, if I were reacting to this, right? Structure from content. So for me, each one of these ingredients is actually content in and of itself. And if you were populating it like potato salad, blah, 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 blah. So I've got a bunch of descriptions that I'm explaining potato salad, right? And then if you were actually going to be putting bullets into this list, you're actually not following the idea of atomic content, because what you've just done is you've combined the description of potato salad with the ingredients of potato salad.
Right. I want to do steps 1, 2, 3, 4 to make it.
Right.
That might have been a poor example. My actual example is a synthesis process for a
right. But let me give you an example of that. So just like we were doing with Bruce and the policies, in this content methodology, you want to be separating out description from the steps of the process. And if you were to bury all of those into the same note, later you couldn't yet pull description. Like, let me give you an example of this. I'm going to drop a lorem ipsum here. Let me just give you a quick example. So this is a report. So here's a description of potato salad. Here are the ingredients of potato salad. Let's say later in another report or in another use case, I wanted to repurpose the description of potato salad, but did not want it to include its ingredients. Right? So the way I would do that is this. I would I would actually structure my content differently, where I would actually have the ingredients under potato salad be separate. So I've got potato salad. Here's potato salad's description. Here are the ingredients of potato salad. I might put a user-generated attribute that we would create that would actually label this as potato, label this ingredient, because here's the other exciting thing about this method too. I might apply this ingredient is part of potato salad, but you may also find that this ingredient is also part of pizza, right? So you're starting to see that we can actually have ingredients be related to different things. And then finally, let me show you this report. Now what I want to do in this report is totally different context from all of the content that I've so lovingly curated. I now want to be using it in different context. And the problem with doing this in like Word documents is that becomes very difficult to do because you can't repurpose your content easily. So now in this report, what I want to say is, I have a lot of recipes. Now I want description for, sorry, I'm typing quick, so for pea salad, right? Now I can just tell Tinderbox, hey Tinderbox, go get the value of text from the note and stick it here. And because we need smart quotes here, we'll go like that. Turn those off, and I can fix these quotes. And essentially what I'm now doing is I'm saying, hey Tinderbox, I want you to go out and get the text, the description for that note called potato salad. And what did I do wrong? Value text. I've got to spell it right is what I need to do. You can see here I'm spelling challenged sometimes, so we'll go here. What did I just do with my potato? Oh, my report, here it is. And I paste it there. Come on.
So can I automatically...
And now watch this. So essentially what I've now done, because I've separated my content, I've separated my ingredients from the description of potato salad, I can now repurpose the description of potato salad anywhere else I want.
Okay, I don't mean to belabor this, but for my steps to make it, say they're all in a single text where I've got my steps separate from the description.
Mm-hmm.
Can I turn those into a list in a separate template?
Yes, and again, as we showed you here, let me show you that, and I'll show you then, and also too, this is how easy it is to move templates back and forth between different notes. So if I go here, let me pull that other file that I had. Control Shift, where is it? I'm just going to go grab this template from this. So I'm going to pull a template that I had previously written in a different file. And let me explain what this template is. This template says, but look at its name, bulleted children names. What I want you to do, action code, what I want you to do is go collect the list of the children, grab me their names, wrap those names in bullets, and then stick that value in my string. So if I go up here and I apply that template that we just imported to this note, and I now look at that note, I've now got a bulleted list of those steps. And if I wanted to add some text here, I would say, here are the steps to make potato salad. Bam, there you go.
Okay, so you've got a separate note for every step.
Well, that's the way I would do it, because for me, this ingredient's really powerful, and down the road, I might want to know where is chili pepper used. right? So I don't use just chili pepper for potato salad. I also use chili pepper for pizza. For your type of science work, what you might end up doing is saying, step 3 actually is a step that we use in 5 different processes within our lab. So that's why, that's one, because that process, that step is actually a discrete piece of knowledge that relates to other things, not just this one set of things that you might have happening.
Okay. All right, Michael, thank you.
I know we've gone long on this one, guys, but I've hoped you've found value in this. Any other final? And again, we can reproduce this. We can repeat this. If you guys want, I'll give you this file. Let me actually just save this file, and I'll put it up into the chat for you. And you can play with it at your leisure. Meetup 06 OG 22. Okay. And while we're kind of wrapping up, any other final thoughts, comments, ideas?
Frederick, this is great. And I'm just wondering, are there examples in the forum in a specific place, or are they spread out, or where would we look?
They're kind of both. A lot of them are in my videos. A lot of them are, just search for them. Discourse has some search challenges. Other things too is, even if, here would be my idea for you. Spend 5 or 10 minutes searching on the forum for something. If you can't find it, don't waste any more time. Just post a new thread and said, I'm trying to do this. And invariably what will happen is Mark or myself or Tom will say, hey, Dittmer solved that a year and a half ago, or we just addressed that last week, or here it is. Or invariably, here's a really important concept. You probably could well be doing something that no one's else done before. Because you're now using this knowledge management concept, and you've got a unique context that no one's really ever thought about before. And then you ask someone on the forum, and we'll write the template for you, or we'll give you examples of the action code for you to achieve what you want to do. And this is what Chuck Wade has repeated multiple times that I really, really appreciate, is this is the greatest group in the world for saying, here's the problem. Let's start with the problems we're solving. And then we'll figure out how to solve them. A lot of people start with, here's how I'm solving it, and they never get around to explaining their problem. So the clearer you can be of, this is what I'm trying to do and why, give us that context, then we can figure out the hows. And the beautiful thing about a software like Tinderbox versus, say, a Microsoft Word prescribes the how, because it's presentation software. You need to do it this way. Tinderbox is a toolbox. It's not a tool. And with a toolbox, you can use a screwdriver to drill a hole, to put in a screw, to do a bunch of different things. So there's invariably 10 different ways you can accomplish a goal using your toolbox of Tinderbox. As opposed to like Microsoft, there might only be 1 or 2. And that's really the power of a tool like this.
I'll just throw in, because in case there are some new folk here, and I apologize because I am its author, but if you haven't found ATBRef, I just put a link in the sidebar. I linked to it a lot from the forums, and it's deliberately not a how-to. It's attempting to be a kind of a toolbox manual. So with your erector set scattered over the floor, it's telling you what the piece you've got in your hand does, and which other bits of the erector set you can use it with. Because it's so open-ended, and we always assume everybody else is using it the way we do, and of course it actually transpires we're all using it similarly but not quite the same. Which is why often it might seem odd. You may think, oh, do I really need to ask this question? But you'll find often you hit it up in the forum, and sure enough, you're doing something that's just slightly different. So there is a solution, but one you might not immediately get.
Right. And again, ATBRef can be a bit daunting when you first look at it, because it's you open up that toolbox. I'm like, I have no idea how to use any of these tools. Well, that's just about familiarity. And Andres Ericsson, have you ever heard the 10,000 hour rule? Had said, anyone can become an expert if they put in 10,000 hours. And Keith just reminded me of this a couple days ago. Keith, you want to drop in that link to that video you had? It'd be really good. What we learned from that is just not a matter of the amount of time you put in. It's the amount of concerted, repeated effort you put in, the feedback loop that you have with that effort, and the coaching and training you get. And with this Tinderbox community, you get all of that. You can put in your time, you get instantaneous feedback from the tool Tinderbox, did it work or didn't it work, and you get your coaching and guidance from the community. And so Tinderbox literally can help you not only become it can help you become a knowledge management expert within your context or domain of your work or your life or your play or your fun. And it really is the medium. It's the perfect medium for becoming an expert in your domain when it comes to your knowledge. And I'm not just a Tinderbox zealot. If there were a better tool out there, I'd use it. I've just yet to find one. And Tinderbox by itself also can be enhanced and extended. And on that note, we'll leave you with this. Once you start combining Tinderbox with other software, you can start doing some really cool stuff like this.
Michael, you were great. The draft is ready.
So whenever I produce a draft of a document, I have Tinderbox tell me how awesome I am. And then what I'll do is I will then use a open source software package called Pandoc, which will then allow me to do really cool things like this. So if I go here, I can then export my document out of Tinderbox.
Michael, you were great.
And
the draft is ready.
The document automatically produces that HTML file, and then it'll also produce a Word document for me as well. And to give you an example of one of those more complex ones, here is my dissertation proposal that I just submitted this week, all published right out of Tinderbox.
Congratulations, man. That's great.
Right. So that's what you can do. So then when you start combining that with other tools, it just is freaking amazing. And Mary Beth and I are actually writing our 10th edition of our textbook in this process. And Justin, who's dropped off, are writing, industry reports with this process. And again, you can learn this. I mean, Justin had never seen Tinderbox between Tuesday and Friday, and he's now writing industry reports with the tool. And here's a great example. He doesn't necessarily know how to write templates. He doesn't know how to write action code. I gave him my templates and my action code, and he's just focusing on content. So as you start thinking about your teams, you can separate these disciplines. You don't need to be a structure and design expert to get value out of Tinderbox. You can use the community can help you with that. Start becoming an expert in your content, and the other things will follow.
Owen's asking which voice you use for your voice.
Oh, I use Lee. But I also really like Teresa from Ireland. She's got a good one. And there's a really good Indian one that I enjoy too. It's super fun. I mean, it's neat that you can do that. And again, just to show you, how that works. And again, this is code that we can just give you. When I produce those stamps, all this code is just saying is stick the text in a draft, run it through an HTML template, and then have Lee tell me how great I am. That's it. And then when I go to export, it's a little bit longer. This is a command line code from Pandoc. But again, here's an interesting idea. You'll see here I'm passing values from Tinderbox to construct the command line code that Pandoc wants to convert my file. So by doing that, I'm able to use the attributes of Tinderbox to then really tailor exactly what I want that output to be. Which Word file template do I want it to use? Do I want to include the bibliographies or not? Again, Tinderbox affords you this ability to have really granular control of what you want and what you want to do. And you simply just can't do that with Word, PowerPoint, or any of these other tools. Yeah, and again, don't float up to the top of the fishbowl. I've been at this for 10 plus 2 years. 10 years of struggling and treading water and almost drowning with the tool of Tinderbox. And the last 2 years actually, I went 10 years of playing with the tool and never becoming an expert. The last 2 years, with a concerted, intentional effort to learn this process, with repeated feedback and coaching from Mark Anderson, I have now become that expert. And there's that great difference. I wasted 10 years. I took 2. And I didn't know anything. Command line what 2 years ago? No idea. So and it's totally. And Justin is now doing command line in 4 days. right? Yeah. So it's imminently teachable and learnable, and I think for me the insight was content structure design.
And I think the other thing is learning can get easier. It's sort of the temptation is I'm going to write my master document and the life universe and everything in it. But actually, for instance, my way into this, I had a similar start. I spent a couple of years sort of noodling around with the app, and I decided I didn't get export. So the document that became ATBRef was me trying to just understand how the heck you exported more than just one page. And then after I'd written it, well, the electrons were free, and it's obviously like Topsy, it's grown over time. But nonetheless, the seed there was and by giving myself a sort of a scoped task that wasn't everything, organizing my entire life, it was easier to concentrate on, okay, I've got this bit working, I haven't got this bit working. And then all the rest of the understanding came for free. So I think that can often be a good point if you're just starting, is just give yourself a sort of a more closed-in target of something to do. Mm-hmm. And you'll equip yourself with a lot of insight, which is immediately transferable into some of the broader, bigger projects you may take on board. And the other thing is, don't be worried about making a mistake. Tinderbox is very flexible. If you create a whole lot of attributes and you realize they're all wrong, it's absolutely not like it is in many tools where you'd have to just throw the whole thing away and start over. It's not like a database where you'd have to redesign all the tables or something. It's remarkably flexible. But at the same time, get in the habit that when you're doing something you don't quite understand, make a small document whose only job is to do just that one thing, so that you're sure that it works, and it's either failing because you've done it wrong, not because there's something else in there that you weren't thinking about. Because the temptation, we're all prone to it, think, I'll just add this one thing to my document. And there are any number of things that could be interacting. And if you get in the discipline of making a document, making something work, taking the working code and then just throwing away the test, or if you're a pack rat, putting it somewhere deep in your storage bin where you'll never look at it again and it'll replicate on for years and years, and just take the bit you've learned. It's very counterintuitive, but I have to say, it's a lesson I keep relearning.
Yeah. Well, here and the last couple final points too is, when it comes to flexibility in this idea, I mean, there are different strategies, and I want to reiterate another point that was made time and time again. I personally use Tinderbox for everything, right? I use it 80-90% of all my work. It's the core of my workflows. And I've learned for the purposes of my output, the output works. Bernardo, another global expert in Tinderbox, he's doing some really granular stuff for Aristotelian, Greek philosophy, and for him, he was getting a bit hung up with the export of Tinderbox, and so he actually did all of his note taking in Tinderbox and then uses Scrivener, because Scrivener gives him much more granular control than Tinderbox per se for his particular application. Totally fine, great, it works for him, right? Go and do that. Another really important insight, and finally with Tinderbox, is when you're using Tinderbox, people will say, I don't want to spend all of this time learning yet another proprietary software. I hear that sometimes too. Was like, I don't want to spend the time learning this tool. Remember, when you're learning the tool, what are you learning? You're learning HTML, which is the standard of the internet for structure. You're learning CSS, which is the standard of the internet for design. You're learning, different views, which are different ways to look at and analyze your structure. By the way, these views are common, and I can export Excel spreadsheets out of here. You're learning a CSV, tab delimited data. You're learning all of the standards of modern digital native content when you're using Tinderbox. That knowledge is transferable everywhere. The other thing to realize when you're doing Tinderbox, here is an unpacked version of a Microsoft Excel file. And if I go to the document section and I look at that in BB Edit, you cannot, here is the document of a Microsoft Word file. It's totally unintelligible. There's nothing you can do with this content. It's impossible to render it. It's impossible to refactor it. It's impossible to reuse it. Go to Tinderbox. Here is the same concept, but now in Tinderbox. It's all really clean, very pristine XML. And if you scroll down, you'll see all of my content is imminently there. So if I go down here, here's my content that I can easily copy and paste. I can easily pull out. So the other argument I hear from the use of the tool of Tinderbox is I don't want to get locked into this proprietary software. Well, I would argue Word is a hell of a lot more locking you in than Tinderbox will ever be, because it's part of this, again, this standards of the internet. So it's a really, really powerful mechanism as you move forward in your journey of knowledge management. All right, guys. Well, we went over really long today. I apologize, but I hope you all had you got value from this today.
This was great.
Hey, Mark, real quick, you were talking about using different technologies. Is AppleScript the scripting language, or is it proprietary?
Well, I can perhaps answer that. There isn't. Tinderbox now has an AppleScript dictionary that allows you to do some things like create notes via AppleScript. AppleScript's been on Apple's naughty step for, well, forever. They keep trying to kill it, but it won't go away, mainly because it's so embedded in the print industry. They want us to play with rinky-dink shortcuts or something, but that's not really mature technology yet. Tinderbox can also speak to the command line, as you've seen. Action code, which is Tinderbox, one of Tinderbox's internal languages. So way back when, what is now the export language, the things you see with the little carrots either side of them, was the original sort of macro language of Tinderbox. Action code came along a bit later and is now borged that. So really the automation you see in Tinderbox, action code is the main thing inside the app, but that's you might say bespoke to Tinderbox.
But I want to pause you there, Mark. Really important.
Yep.
The export code is very much a Tinderbox syntax. Action code is fundamentally based on Perl, which is very similar to JavaScript. And so what I found by learning action code, I'm actually starting to learn Perl and JavaScript, right? And I can and I'm also learning how to read JSON code because it's a very similar syntax.
Someone like Chuck probably correct me. If you come from a coding background, probably the worst thing to ask yourself is, what language is action code like? Because it borrows from all over the place. Okay. And the other important thing is it was never designed as a computer language. So if you are trying to look at it like a computer language, it will have, it doesn't have else ifs. Pick something. So don't think of it like, basically it's an overgrown macro system. And it's grown in a way that supports its users. So, and I'm certainly guilty of one or two features are in there because I absolutely needed something that did this particular transformation. Because Tinderbox's main shtick is working with text, really. It's doing really interesting transformations and extracts with text. Your notes are written in text, and you can work with other information, but it's not trying to be like a sort of multimedia everything bin. It shines best working with text. It shines best with working with notes that are short. So although you can put the whole of War and Peace into a note and probably won't break the thing, that's not what it's designed to do.
It's designed to get to those atomic level of insights of content.
Yeah. But you can have as many notes as you need. And again, it's slightly counterintuitive because, again, it's probably, because for most of us, our starting place, or the thing we learned is working in a WYSIWYG environment. And Keith already reprimanded me for throwing too much shade at Word, but other WordPresses are available. But we start out in this thing where we're basically trying to write and make stuff look as we want at the same time. And that becomes a habit, and actually not a useful habit. I mean, that's something I certainly learned. And it's like when I did my thesis, when I threw all that in the bin and just started writing in LaTeX. It was painful, but it was a lot easier than writing in a WYSIWYG working environment.
When I've watched Michael's tutorials, your action code and your agents and your stamps and that's what you're talking about, Michael? Is it's kind of a Perl ish.
I mean, it loosely steals from that kind of syntax, right? So if we were to looking Let's go ahead and like look here on this bulleted child list. And here's a great example. So this is an export template. And as part of the export code syntax, this is a syntax and export code that says curate call action code. So everything in between these parentheses is going to be action code. So Tinderbox is going to say, oh, you want me to perform some action code and then export out the text on the note and then build that list that you just told me to do it. And what this action code is doing is it's saying build a bulleted list into my string. Now let me show you. Now let me show you a different way of doing that. If I copy this code right here, and a simple way of doing action code is with stamps, and I'm going to create a new stamp called bulleted list, right? And I'm going to paste that code in there, and I hit enter, right? This is action code. Clear out my string, collect my children, create a list, build me a bulleted list.
Awesome.
Okay. So now if I go here, let's copy this one, and we're going to say, we're going to call it potato salad 2, just for fun.
I hate potato salad.
Yeah, no worries. My apologies. So, and let's go ahead and here and add my string. Okay. And because we've done this before, it exited. Now let's modify this a little bit too. What you'll also learn too is you don't want to create chaff in your file. So you can also go my string equals empty. So what I'm saying is, hey Tinderbox,
right?
Go and if you're doing it in export code, you want to do this, right? So in export code, I really want to have that.
No, you don't. At the end, you want to.
Oh yeah. I want. Sorry. I want it down
Otherwise,
here.
when you call my string,
I want it down here.
Template, there'll be nothing there.
Yeah, I want it down here, right? So I want to say, hey Tinderbox, run the action, display the action, then clear out my string so I don't have unnecessary text in my file. And so if I go and run that now, you'll see I'm getting my bulleted list. Okay.
Wow.
Now if I do that here. Watch this, okay? And in this one, I'm going to do this one a little bit differently. I'm going to put value my string this. Now, if you recall earlier, the other times I was doing this, I was putting quotes here. I was saying this and then calling a different note's name. So I'm basically that's saying, hey, Tinderbox, go grab the value of my string from a different note. But in this context, what I want to do is I want to grab the value of my string from this note when I play it. And so now if I apply this action code to this note, I hit apply. Oh, I'm going to get rid of that just so I can do that. I hit apply. You'll see that is actually populated my string with a bunch of the leads. This is very similar to Bill's example of using text expander. All right? And now when I preview, there's my bulleted list.
Wow.
Right? And the reason why you're getting, here's an interesting thing, and this is here's another way of doing, again, I apologize going long for you guys, but here's Tinderbox, invariably Tinderbox will do exactly what you're asking it to do. So trust that Tinderbox is working, and it's you and your instructions to Tinderbox that's not. So when I do this, why am I getting a bulleted list and a bulleted list? Well, because that's what I'm telling it to do. Here's step 1, grab the bulleted list, stick the bulleted list here, but your template's also saying process these children. So let me show you how to stop that. And this is an affordance that I created for myself that was really kind of fun. I created a Boolean attribute called isNoChild. And what I say is, and I'll mouse this over so you can see it, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create a Boolean attribute called isNoChild. So now I've got a Boolean attribute called isNoChild, and I'm now going to go into my template, and I'm going to say, if, and this is an action code, this is an export code syntax. If isNoChild equals false or true, true. No, excuse me. If isNoChild is false. And if, right? So what am I doing now? I'm telling Tinderbox, from the parent note, process it with this template. Then I'm saying Tinderbox, hey, for the children notes, process it with this template. But now I've added a bit of logic to my process. I'm saying if the is no child Boolean is false, then I want you to process the children. So then the logical context of that is if no is no child is true, then ignore him, right? Because you're telling it logically. If it's true, then this if statement fails and it will ignore the children. So now if I go here and watch this, it's false. It's true now, and I screwed something up. So I was gonna like what, and then I screwed something up. What did I do? Let's delete this table here. Oh, I know why. Because children are going to number 2. So if is no child equals false, process the children. And I'll go like that. And I still, okay, let me grab it from another file. Because when you're on the fly and you're doing code fast, you're making a mistake somewhere. So what am I doing here? Where are my templates? I just want to show you that this does in fact work. And I'm thinking too fast and I don't know why it doesn't right now. So let's go here. I go here. And I'll grab one of my is no statements to see. This is why having templates is nice, because when you're on the fly, you can easily make mistakes like this. All right. So if is no child equal, if is no child, oh, okay, is no, maybe I labeled it wrong. Is no show child is the way I do it. And I'm going to relabel this to, and this actually shows you how, this demonstration too is showing you how you can easily change your attribute name. So if is no show child equals false, then show the children. What I need to do, I put it in the wrong place. So again, here's a great example of Tinderbox is doing exactly what we told it to do. I'm processing the children. I want this actually at the top level note, right? Because I'm selecting the top level note that has children, right? So my top level note, if my children are false, then don't do it. So here's a top level note, and now when I do it, God damn, what am I doing wrong? Mark, what did I do wrong here? If is no show child equals false. Children, templates, HTML item, and if. Oh. That. Damn it. All right, let me just copy my code over here, and we'll do this. It should work. So go like this, put it here. We'll say is no child equals false. And the template name is HTML item. And this is
so
just...
Mark, the action code actually is in that HTML template, much like time leaf or some of the other.
Correct.
Okay. That's
right.
Awesome.
Right. But what I'm trying to demonstrate now, and I don't know, I can't, because I'm going too fast, and if I take a second to think about it, why is it, if is no show child equals false, then children, process your children. So let's go here. I selected this one. And and I think I know why. Because all of my children are in different templates. So if I go like this, there we go. Whoops, no. No template. Let's have them all using the same template. This is what happens when you move too fast. Because they're all formatted using the bulleted list. That's why. So now if I do this. And I need to imply, okay. Okay, so here you go. If I do this, look, I don't see my bulleted list. Well, why don't I see my bulleted list? Because my template is actually zeroing out that bulleted list. So now, if I go and apply my stamp, I've now generated my bulleted list, and there it is. And there's no children now. And if I go here, there's all the children. If I go here, there's now no children. So... Sorry, I had my templates mixed up, so that's why that was causing that. But this is a great way of using attributes to control and tell Tinderbox what to do. Children, no children, and that's the exact same methodology that I use for this more complex file. Where did it go? Oh yeah. So if I look up here. here's my more complex file, and you'll see I've got similar booleans here where I'm like, is use your own template, or is no show title, is no show text. And so that way, here's a great example. Let's say I want this bulleted list here. I'll go like this. And in this, so in this H2 thing, I want these bullets. But let's say I don't want that title there. What I do is I go here and I turn off my boolean is no show title. And now I've got no title. So as you start figuring out the nuances of what you want in your output, this is why you separate your content from your structure from your design. You can get, and people will often say, well, Mark Bernstein, well, why didn't you build that into Tinderbox? And well, he doesn't know what you want to do, right? He doesn't know how you want to use the tool, right? And you could say it's so obvious. That's the standard way of doing it. No, that's the way you do it. That very similar to most people, but slightly different. So again, when you approach Tinderbox, realize it's a tool set that will let you do what you want to do it. But as Mary Beth just put in the notes, with great power comes great responsibility. If you want to be accountable for your content, then you need to be accountable for learning your tools, and that's what it takes to become an expert. But the nice thing about Tinderbox is learning this tool means you're learning the standards of the internet, and not some proprietary piece of software that's not usable anywhere else. So again, we keep going a bit long, but was that last bit even? And hopefully too, you learn too, mistakes happen, logic confusions happen. Even in a public forum like this, you can get through it pretty darn quick. And when all else fails, hit the forum. And when all else really fails, hit up me or Mark or somebody else, and we'll hop on. And you end up making great friends too. Like Mark and I have been Zooming for about a year and a half. And then I actually got to go to London the other day and spent 3 nights at his house. So that was super fun. So you actually get to build friends from this as well.
So Bill, do you actually make potato salad?
No, actually I don't. My mom told me a recipe about it recently, but I just wanted to keep it something generic instead of what did I do to synthesize this product that I'm working on, which just would get, I thought the potato salad just made a more interesting example.
Yeah, and Bill, if it helps, shoot me up. You and I could build out a template for you in like an hour and give you a strategy on how to organize your content.
Yeah, well, I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking about, well, maybe I can put every little step, but they can be so minuscule. Measure out this amount of material X, measure out this material Y. They're not going to be things that I'm going to reuse, every single time. They're just little detailed steps, which from a WYSIWYG standpoint, it makes total sense to just throw them all in one note, but I'm now considering throwing all those little simple steps into each their own note, so that my output I can adjust it consistently with a template.
Yeah, exactly. And let me give you another example of that too. And remember, you're seeing a lot of incremental formalization that I've been doing over months, years, sometimes hours, and it can be a bit daunting. So yesterday, but I still do the early step stuff too when you're in that early data collection. I use an application called Drafts, not Tinderbox, when I'm really in the let's just collect as much knowledge and notes as possible. Then I start bringing it over to Tinderbox and curating it. If I'm sitting in front of my computer and I'm rapidly taking notes, I'll give you a great example of that. So here's one of my more messier files of knowledge management. As you see, it's not very clean. And yesterday, I was sitting down, helping Mary Beth get ready to follow this process. And I'm like, okay, what applications does she need? She needs Xcode, Tinderbox, Zotero, iTerm, Homebrew, Grammarly. Needs to create a couple folders on her computers to use Tinderbox, and drafts for the chat note taking, a setting in her Finder view path, Google Drive, and Dijo. And then I started documenting while we were walking through doing with her. I started doing the very quick note taking of here's what it takes to install these different pieces of software, and here are the steps that we went through to, like in Zotero, getting better BibTeX set up. It took a few more steps. And so we were just very quickly documenting those steps. Then that step, that's kind of like what I'll call the collection stage of the Zettelkasten process. The next stage will be curation. I'll start breaking them up. I'll start tagging them. I'll organize them. The next stage will be structure. I'll put templates to them. And then the next stage after that will be design to make it pretty. And then I'll figure out, do I want it in a PowerPoint file? Do I want it in an Excel file? So here's a great example of Mary Beth and I spending about 90 minutes yesterday getting her computer set up with all the software she needs to follow my processes, and in a very rough collection stage of the notes that we were creating.
So if you took those 12 steps for Zotero or whatever you were doing in one of those,
yeah,
would you create right there? Are you going to take that and take the time?
No. No, probably not. This is going to be one note for me because these steps aren't used anywhere else. They're used specifically for Zotero, only in this context, and I'm not going to do them anywhere else. But in the example of potato salad, chili pepper is actually a more universal concept that will actually potentially, if I'm building a recipe book, will interact with a bunch of other notes as an ingredient in other recipes.
Okay, so here you are using the internal numbering system rather than HTML.
Well, no, I just hand typed these. I didn't use the internal number system. I just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yep, and that's what you're doing. I just happened to have needed to export one of my experiments, just one, from all the ones that I'm collecting. And what I did was I had it in HTML, so I just took the preview and copied and pasted it.
Correct. But there's a great example of why mudding up your text with HTML tags makes it difficult to copy. Whereas now I could just copy this and paste it to you. But if I were using your method right now with the HTML, and I by the way, I did that like 18 months ago. If I had the HTML embedded within the text like that, making that copying is very difficult because I embedded structure and design into the text itself.
Now, and don't forget, if you just wanted to export the children as numbered steps, the sibling order attribute starts at 1. So the first child of a container is 1, the second is 2, third is 3. So if you had a container that was your process, 12 steps in it, if you exported them in your template, you just put where you want the number to be. You put value $sibling order, full stop, whatever, and then you'll think it's easily done.
And actually, let me show you that really quick. Actually, let me go through here, and I'm going to delete these numbers. Right? I'm going to go like this. And this is the way I would actually go about myself curating it. I was with Mary Beth. We were just hacking this thing out to get it done. I did have some forethought to put some pounds up here because I knew I was going to want to break these discrete steps up into place. So I'd go up here. I'd say break at the delimiter of a pound and remove that from the text. And so now I hit explode. All right. So now essentially what I've done is I've broken my 3 steps into 3 separate different notes. I'm now going to move that out of the explode template. You're actually helping me do my work right now. I've now got the steps that I need for Zotero. And now what I might want to do is write some action code around writing these steps. But to do it really simply, if I did want to do some auto numbering and all of that, I might do this. Now I want to break at paragraph marks, explode that even further. And again, we're just doing a really fast hack because I got to get something out and it's busy for me. So I've gone ahead and done that. And now I'm going to quickly make a export stamp that says this. And I do these kind of hacks probably 6 times a day because I'm moving so fast I need to get it done. Change name. And then I'll go make name equal to $ sibling order plus period space plus the existing name. Right? Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to test it first. I'm going to select one note to make sure I get what I have, and I'm going to copy that name just in case it screws up, but it won't. And I'll go like this, and you'll see, okay, it worked on that note. So now I'm going to select all the notes, and bam. Now I've got all of my steps 1 through 11 numbered and listed. And now if I look at the preview, I've got my numbered and listed notes. And then by doing that, what I then can do is I say, okay, this export code is now working. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these notes and I'm going to quickly create a new prototype. Let's go up here. I'm going to quickly create a new prototype. I'm going to call this prototype step. Right? And in the prototype step, I'm now going to add the rule, make note equal that. And I'm going to hit enter. And then I'm going to go back to the notes we were working on. Where was it? Software setup. All right. And now I'm going to say and we showed the on add earlier in our call today. I would say, and this is exactly my workflow, guys. What I do every day, all the time as I'm figuring out what I want to do. I'll say prototype equals p step. Okay, and so now when I want to add a new step to that list, I go like this, and I'll say, did I get the name right? Let's see. Let's make all of these p step. Okay, and there you'll see I've got text running amok. That code should not be enabled on the prototype, and we'll call it p step. So I've disabled the that for the prototype, and then I go up to where's the download software? Where'd it go? Here you go. All right, and we're gonna rerule that, and I'll fix that later. But you'll see there's ways for me to then automate that text, and you'll notice then when I'm doing stuff like that, I made a mistake and I got code that was running amok. So then I can just go back to my original code and start the process over, and just say, go like this, go note, call this steps, explode that out, like that. That gives me each of my individual steps. And what I'm trying to do now is figuring out what I did wrong there. I could say, make your rule, do the on add there, and we'll say prototype equals p step. Spell prototype right. Okay, and then we'll go take a look at our rule real quick just to make sure it's not broken again. Map view, outline view. Scroll down to our prototype and see why that is going crazy. Name equals sibling order plus dot name. And then this is where you could actually do an if statement where I might, because it's running amok, I would say, if is update name equals true, then do that. Otherwise, don't. And then what I would do is I would create a new user-generated attribute called is update name, and I'm gonna make it. So I've now got a new user attribute called is update name, and those will be false for the most part. And now if I go back to my notes here, I apply the p step attribute there, and now with those I want to go through and update their names. Okay, but then I have and then here's another way of doing it. So you see how that went crazy? So why did that go crazy? Because as soon as I did it, I told it to continue to do that, and so then I'm going to go back to my rule on the step, and I'm going to say at the end of doing this rule, I'm going to say is update name equals false. So essentially from a logic perspective now, what I'm doing is I'm telling Tinderbox, if the update is true, follow this thing, and then when you're done doing the process, turn off the update so the name won't keep updating. So then I'll go here and now apply that step, and and I'm going to say it's true, and now it's become false. And I can go through all of these, and then if I really want to do it quick, I'll create a stamp here, and I'll say is update name equals true. Right? Select them all. That updates all of their names. And then by doing this process, and now I've got a piece stamp, so now I've added next step, new step. And it's been given the prototype piece step. And on the on add, I want to say is update equals true. And then the next thing I want to say is update equals true. So on this on add, what I want to have happen is make sure the prototype is piece step and then set the update to true so the new note name will change its number. And go like that. New note. And then I can go ahead and apply the stamp again too. So you'll see, oops, not that one. Change name. Right. So you'll see there's ways to kind of do this automation, and I wouldn't do it this way because there's more efficient and expeditious way to do it. But that's kind of ways of you using action code to transform your content to make your work more efficient.
Hey, it's interesting for me because the simplest thing to do is just get the work done. Would be what you did in drafts and just manually put 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah. No, exactly. So, and to that point, when I'm in the get it done mode, I do that. When I'm in the curation mode and the forethinking of what I want to do later, it may take me, like what I just went through right now in 5 minutes with you, I may think about that for a few weeks. I may think about, I'll get my work done. But as I find myself needing to go through that process multiple times, I'm like, okay, this is the 5th time I've had to do this manually. I'm going to go back now and figure out the action code so I don't have to do it a 6th and 7th time.
Yeah, part of my motivation was to just get some exposure to HTML. And that idea came from coming to these forums. So
well, I truly believe in my heart of hearts, and that's why I teach it in my classes. I've just gotten hired by Cal Poly actually to teach strategic mobile marketing. In my heart of heart, if you are not HTML literate, at least at the basic levels, you're going to become quickly digitally illiterate within the next 3 to 5 years. I mean, I think it's really going to be those people that have this language that they can use and those that do not, and that will make a very distinctive competitive advantage for people in society. Like some of the stuff that Tom's doing with AI in Tinderbox is just ridiculously sick. It's really cool, and he's combining it with Tinderbox and such, so it's pretty neat. Similar languages. All right, all. We've been 2 hours today. Wow.
Yep.
Long way overboard, but I hope you all got a lot of value from it.
Thank you again.
See you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Michael.
Thank you.